Friends, this is your Raleigh Youth Mission Team from this summer. I'll say a little bit more of an introduction about that, and then we'll get them to do all the talking. First of all, lest you think that I am organized enough to get a group of kids to a place and bring the same kids back home, Matthew did an oodles amount of the organizational work to pull this together. Jill, who has been going on mission trips since slightly after Bill started ushering, which was slightly after the wedding at Cana, is always there to remind us what the rules are, to make sure that we all come back in one piece. And Dawn got a text from me randomly out of the blue that said, "Don't you think you'd like to go on a mission trip?" And because Dawn is Dawn, she said, "Sure." Graham was our, sort of in this phase of life, our inaugural college student leader, and did a phenomenal job of helping to bridge the gap from cringeworthy adults and awesome youth. And so I want to say thank you to all of those leaders who helped make this happen. Raleigh Youth Mission is a little bit different than going to a place and doing some weeding and mowing the lawn and painting a house, in that it also wanted to do some education about systems that cause poverty, systems that cause housing crisis, systems that cause wage stagnation, and in contrast to those realities, the call to community for how we can work together to overcome those injustices. And so we're going to hear a little bit about the ways they engaged both those systems and that call to community. Matthew.
Okay, so as Andrew mentioned earlier, we were really excited this year to have a dialogue conversation as opposed to just a couple people giving little vignettes of their experience. So we're going to try to walk you through, and us together through, what that experience was, starting with why even go to Raleigh in the first place. So we'll start with that question. Who should we have answer this? Jubilee, we would like to know...
Why did you go?
Why you went on this trip, and maybe more specifically, what was your interest in serving in Raleigh?
I went to Raleigh because my dad told me that I should go.
Your dad! Your dad!
And just being with all these people is just really fun, and helping all the other people, that just is really a good thing to do.
Mm-hmm.
Does
Someone else
have anything else to add to that?
Any other people have a different reason they went to Raleigh? Oh, nice.
I think I originally went because I thought it would just be fun. But as I was in Raleigh, this was a really strong community to be a part of. And I thought I really grew as a person, understanding others and where they came from, and not just focusing on myself.
Nice.
I think that's a really great segue, maybe, to, go Owen.
Yeah, so, what did you all know about Raleigh before we went? What was that, Isaiah?
The Wagon Wheel, the song.
Oh.
I die in Raleigh, at least I'll die free.
Okay, so it was the lyric of the song. Anything else? I saw some shaking heads. No. In fact, I have to tell you, I want to tell all my East Coast friends this, because, when I moved to Idaho, people were like, Idaho? Right? Cast serious shade on Idaho. These guys were like, who would want to go to North Carolina? That's not exciting. Why would we want to go to North Carolina? What do we know about Raleigh now? What are some of the things we learned?
I learned that it's pronounced Raleigh and not Raleigh.
Okay, there we go. We learned how to pronounce it correctly. Brendan, you got something? Just keep going.
I learned, as unfortunate as it is, there is quite a bit of homelessness in Raleigh. And I also learned that there's a lot of amazing organizations there. Like, for example, we went to this place called Oak City Cares, and they just like helped out a lot with the homeless, and I found that to be really amazing that Raleigh has so many communities that does that.
And why is it called Oak City Cares?
Because there's a lot of oak trees in Raleigh.
Yeah, there you go.
Yep.
So we're the city of trees, but they're Oak City. You know, they're more specific. Rory.
Kind of the same thing, actually. I was going to say that just a lot of the community was split up, but it also brought those smaller communities together to kind of work together and just be closer to each other, know each other more. Like, we went to a what's it called?
Clothing closet.
Yeah, a clothing closet, and just everyone there was nice to each other, and it just seemed like they knew each other. I'm sure some of them did, but like, it just seemed like they were lifelong friends in just that small community of people who needed clothes that can just bring people so close together.
Nice.
We also went to the food bank one day and sorted potatoes. How many was it? It was a lot of potatoes.
We did 4 hours of taking crates into 5-pound bags.
Yeah.
And you know what's really awesome? Taking Idaho kids to North Carolina to sort potatoes.
But we couldn't really see, like, right there how it affected people, but they were always talking about how it affected and helped the community around us and how we were serving people, even though we couldn't visibly see it right then and there.
Do you remember why does North Carolina now produce a lot of potatoes? Sweet potatoes in particular.
I don't know.
What fields did they switch over? Danielle? Tobacco, right. They had to come up with a new king crop, they called it, right? And sweet potatoes was their one. Someone else have something? We served at a couple places, right? So you've named a clothes closet, the food bank. Meredith, what do you have for us?
Well, at one point we talked about the thing called the Research Triangle that's in the Raleigh area. That's like 3 colleges, Duke, UNC.
C, and some other place.
Yep.
Sorry, I'm saying that because Andrew Bailey is a North Carolina grad.
And I feel like at one point we talked about how when people come in to like work or go there, they're able to afford more expensive housing, but then the people who live there might not be able to afford to pay more rent or housing, so then they get kicked out and they could become homeless, or it becomes harder to live for them. And that's just something I remember distinctly.
Yeah, no, that's great. Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah, so Caleb and Brendan already kind of talked about it, but we talked about the sort of consciousness of the history of racism and other sort of systemic issues with equality. And I think because of that, there's more of a consciousness just in the community, in the city proper. So there's a lot of really, really great services for, like, not that it has to do with racism, but like the homeless, like there was the shower, which was part of the Oak City Cares, and it made me realize that we don't really have like a as readily available public shower for people that can't get that otherwise in Boise. We just don't have that service. There was just a wealth of really good services for people that are not in the best place.
Well, I was going to talk about Oak City Cares as well, because for me that was they had a building, and you could come and you could make a phone call, you could get on a computer. On the weekends they served meals, but the thing that really struck me was they had a bank of washers and a bank of showers. And you know, the people came in and they made an appointment, but they turned those showers over, and so it was really empowering for these people that are homeless and wanted to be clean. They had a place to go besides the gas station bathroom to do a spit bath. And I just thought, oh, maybe that's something that could be done here, but that was empowering to me.
And do you all remember the guy that gave us the tour of the shower area? What was one of the things he knew about all the people who would come in? Danielle.
He always could remember their face and like what all they needed. Like if they needed a special thing, if they had like sensitive skin or something.
So he would have like the right soaps and shampoos because he would know like, oh, you have sensitive skin. I'll get you the kind of soap you need and whatnot. Yeah.
I feel like there's a thing I noticed a lot is all the work that churches are doing to help people in a lot of different ways. When we were at the clothing closet, they talked about how they're the church that does clothing, but there's other churches that'll do things like hygiene, food, and they have this whole system set up around them so that people know where to go for what things. And then there was another Lutheran church that we went to, and they had this system for people who may have not finished high school to help finish that for them and teach them English if they didn't know that much. And then a daycare, like summer camp thing for their kids while they were at work. And I thought it was just really cool how the community came together to do all those different things for people.
Yeah. Nice. Did we end up on a farm? Who wants to say something about that?
So we also went to Farm Church, which is basically this little farm. It doesn't have animals though, but it's a bunch of crops and it's a church. So every Sunday they get together and they have this church service outside based around their garden. And once they plant and collect all the produce and whatever they grow, they send it off to different churches and food banks and organizations that are smaller to be able to get them like fresh produce for people who want food. And also it's smaller amount so that for the smaller food banks and organizations, because larger food banks can't give them as much food because they can't take on as much food.
And what did we harvest?
Beans.
Green beans, didn't we? Right? So you guys got to learn to look for what's a ready to harvest green bean. Nice.
Are you looking at me to ask another question?
Because I set my piece of paper down. So
So we've talked a little bit about where we worked and what we did, but in that work, I'd love to know where you saw God at work in the community, in our group, those God moments that we might have experienced throughout the week. Isaiah also has.
So I saw a community that was strengthened by God in the literal aspect. Their capital was surrounded. There was the 4 churches in the corners. And then in the more spiritual aspect, they had these people that wanted to help other people. So they sought God not just in themselves, but in other people, and working for other people to kind of enlighten themselves.
great.
Isaiah.
Community to get me the microphone there. That was beautiful. I saw God in all of the different places that we went, but especially the ones that weren't one thing. Meredith kind of mentioned like the clothing closet wasn't like a standalone clothing closet. Like it was inside of a church, and the program that we helped out with specifically to set up for this summer program for kids. There's a large Hispanic population in the area, and a lot of them are poor, and to have a place to go for the kids while their parents work during the summer. And just like seeing, and then we were at the clothing closet, and like they fed us too. They had food for us, and just that aspect of taking care of your community. And then I guess on a more like obvious literal level, we had like Bible discussions every day, and I definitely was able to see God there when we were talking about all the different things that we had experienced through the day and all the different life experiences that we had gone through, and just learning and empathizing more with people in, you know, all corners of the world and all aspects of our own community, I think I was definitely able to see God in those discussions too.
Great.
I saw God in these kids on a daily basis. Hardworking, respectful, loving and caring to everyone we encountered, no judgments. We had no issues with these kids. They were so great and really a proud representation of the love and care that we try to show for others.
Jill, while you've got the microphone, and then I'll get you to Rory. One of the things Romans talked about, you know, gets us back to Scripture, is different gifts. And I saw God in a couple of our people who brought some unique gifts to the clothing closet in particular. Can you and Jubilee speak to your particular experiences at the clothing closet?
So, being a certified sign language interpreter, when we got there, we were having an orientation to how it works, and we were to help the people, they call them clients, that come in to get clothing and how we could best do that. And she did ask if anyone was bilingual, and so Jubilee offered that she was fluent in Spanish, and I offered that I was fluent in American Sign Language. So I asked if any deaf people had been coming, because often deaf people are underemployed and need some resources. And she said, no, there's this one guy who's, I think she called him mute, but he doesn't know sign language or anything. So I said, okay, well, when he gets here, point him out to me, because I'd like to meet him. So he came in, and they said, Jill, that's him, that's him. So I went up to him, and immediately I just signed, hi, are you deaf? And he's like, yes! And we had this full and beautiful conversation, and he was an immigrant from Iran, and his family was there with him. His wife was still over in Iran. He told me the whole thing, but she's coming in 2 months. I'm finally getting her over here. And I'm looking for jobs, and I need a nice pair of shoes. And every week it's the same old stuff, and all this information. And I said, you know, this guy's the shoe manager. Would you like to go talk to him? And he was like, yeah, can you interpret? And I said, I'm a certified interpreter. So we went over there, and he was able to say, this is the size, this is what I'm, and the guy said, we get a couple of pairs of new shoes every week, but they're gone like that. But he said, I'm going to hold one when I see the right size and the kind that you want. Anyway, it made my day. And I then suggested to them how to reach out to some of their community interpreters. I'm sure people would, all of us, give back and give time. So that was really awesome.
While you give that to Jubilee, I want to share one other thing Jill told us. She said she told him they didn't think you signed, and he said, well, they don't know sign language, so it didn't help me to sign with them, so I just gesture because that's all they could understand. And it just kind of reminds us about our own perspectives, and we start assuming things. What did you end up doing, Jubilee?
So yeah, I spoke Spanish with a lot of the customers that came to the clothing closet, and I thought it was just really special, like being able to help them and break like the language barrier. Because a lot of people, like there was one guy who spoke, but there was many like different jobs. Like there was a check-in person, and then a shopping person, and a check-out person, and there was only one person that spoke Spanish there. So it was really hard for him to be all three different people. So, and he was really thankful that I was there to help him with that, and he thought it was a lot easier.
Awesome. Thank you. It was wonderful to watch that. Rory, you had something you wanted to throw in there.
My brothers kind of talked about how amazing the communities we saw were, but I wanted to talk more about one of the leaders of a community. There was this one lady who was helping out at the homeless shelter, I think it was, and she helped the LGBTQ community in Rowley, which is a big controversial topic everywhere, but in Rowley especially. And just like that one homeless shelter that she helped at, they accepted LGBTQ people and just a bunch of different communities that a lot of other homeless shelters didn't accept. And I just found that really amazing because she did have a rough childhood or just growing up. And I could see how God helped her along that path to help get her to a place where she can help other people.
Awesome. Thank you.
I also wanted to say they were one of the only shelters that she said that accepted pets. And she said that a lot of people did not come and stay at the shelter if they couldn't bring their pet. And a lot of them had pets, so that meant that a lot of people were being turned away because they couldn't have their pets in the shelter with them.
Nice. Meredith. First of all, if you aren't picking up how awesome these kids are, I'm watching the time going, I got to cut them off, but I'm not going to cut them off. So,
The person they're talking about, I think her name is Robin,
Mm-hmm.
right? Yeah.
That's true.
One of the things she said was something that really stuck with me is that minimum wage versus livable wage. The minimum wage there, I think, is $7.25, but the livable wage is over $20. So to actually survive there, and especially with a family, you would need at least 3 minimum wage jobs. And I just feel like that's something really important to think about, is that they run out of a lot of time and there's so much to do, especially if they're a single mother taking care of their family, where they have to do a bunch of jobs to actually survive, but then they don't have time to look after their kids.
Nice.
So when I saw this community, I saw a not very accepting community, but then I saw organizations that worked to make it a more accepting community. And when I saw that, that's very powerful to people that don't have everyday things that they need. And for them, just those people taking out time in their day, it's very powerful. And yeah.
Yeah. Brendan, you got something, and we're going to wrap this up.
Okay, so one of the places throughout our entire trip that I saw the most of God's work is actually in one of the games that we played. And so pretty much every night we played a different game, didn't we? Yeah.
Yeah.
And the first night we played this game where everybody got their own envelope, and it had a certain amount of money, a few $100s or even no money. And to me that kind of teaches not everybody is born with privilege. Some people are born privileged, some people aren't born with privilege. And that taught me how people are still able to come together as a community for the less fortunate, and just helping everybody build up each other.
Well, and in that game, Isaiah, you want to say something on that?
Yeah.
Yeah, go. No, I you all are awesome. They have to listen to me go long, so they can listen to you go long.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, kind of in my own words, what a lot of people have been saying, just how powerful it is to see, in different places that I've never been before, and just to know that in places that I will never be, that there are communities working to make that community a better place, I think is just a really powerful, just a really powerful lesson that you don't learn as someone who's just passing through, kind of like we were, and that the value of being, of helping a community that you're a part of and that you can understand is something that, I don't know, I feel like everyone has some responsibility to do, because that's the only community that you can help in that way, because it's the only one that you can really know. And that's something that I really found in, we were talking about knowing people's skin types and knowing what types of people will access a service, and and knowing the ins and outs of the community will always help to make that service a better service, and that's something that really struck me.
Yeah. And, when Brendan talked about the game, one of the other things I remember is that we quickly all got sucked into the competition of the game rather than helping each other out in the game. And that was part of our lesson, right? Was how quickly we got to go worry about ourselves rather than worrying about, hey, how could we pool our resources and how could we work together to win? So, yeah. There was another call to community thing that happened that I want to name really quickly. We get in the closing closet, and we're meeting them, and they're introducing us, and these guys all became personal shoppers, which they weren't all really super excited about to begin with. They'd held the basket and go around to shop for clothes with the clients. And one of the volunteers says, "Oh, we know someone in Raleigh. One of our own here at First Baptist is in Raleigh, Andrew Bailey." And we're like, "Andrew Bailey sings in our choir." So it reminded us that communities, even from Raleigh, North Carolina to Boise, Idaho, can find a connection and can work together. I encourage you all to find our youth in their gray shirts, plus, those of them who forgot their gray shirts. And we're just jealous that we didn't forget them. In the fellowship hall, ask them about a fun thing they didn't get to. Ask them about a favorite place to serve. Let them continue to be a witness to you of the strength of community to make a sometimes harsh world more beautiful. Thank you all for everything you did. You can go sit back down.